And so if it doesn't have water, doesn't have sanitary, doesn't have power, it's not even gonna look at you. But all those things check those boxes in Van Buren Township, and the developer was ready to build. And so this was almost like a perfect case scenario. And so when you look at Van Buren Township and the way the supervisor and the planning commission and the public started to think about it was, and we could go into more about noise, and you'll see the noise on the FAQs, is the supervisor took the Board of Trustees and Planning Commissioners and drove down to New Albany, Ohio, which is where a data center just like this exists. They got in one of those fancy vans and they drove down. It was like 2.5 hours to New Albany. And they walked right up to the road to this data center, the equivalent data center. And the traffic on the road was louder than the actual data center. But that's what the supervisor in Van Buren Township is like. He'll get in the van and he'll drive 2.5 hours to go see it for himself. And that's what it takes if you want to land something like this. And so I encourage you to go to Van Buren Township and read the FAQs. And if you have any other questions for me about kind of the process over the last 2 years, let me know. But from a property tax standpoint, the way in which us in economic development look at data centers is you never want to have your residents bearing the burden of the municipality's property tax. Meaning, if you're a residential community and you go through the Great Recession like we did in 2007, 2008, it's hard to provide police and fire, it's hard to provide city services when you're only collecting property tax from residents and their home value just dropped 40%, right? And so that's why a mixture of uses in your community is a good thing. It builds economic resilience. And so the residents don't bear the burden of paying for police, fire, city staff, and public services. You can have a little bit of light industrial, you can have a little bit of commercial, a little bit of retail, some residential, some multifamily, some senior housing. And so if one of the industries takes a turn, you're not dependent on it. You're not a one-company town. And the saying goes in Detroit, if the automobile industry sneezes, we all catch a cold, right? And I think Van Buren Township looked at that and said, you know what? We want this use case because we want to diversify our tax base, and they're going to pay a lot of money in personal real property tax. Going back to the Saline could eliminate all property tax for every single resident based on the size of the data center that's coming. And so, in economic development, we always look at where the industry is moving. We try to get ahead of it. We try to identify parcels of property. In Van Buren Township, this worked. In Huron Township, there is no data center looking at a parcel right now. Do I get calls? Yes. Did I introduce a data center client to the supervisor? No. Did I introduce a data center client to any of the Board of Trustees? No. Currently, Huron Township has no interest in data centers. What I'm here to tell you is Van Buren Township did. And those are the reasons why it did. Okay?